Welcome, everyone, to another Interesting People in Interesting Times episode. I'm Dennis Stearns, and joining us today is Coach Pamela Mitchell. She is a fabulous coach. Now, she will talk a little bit later about who is really a coach and some of the credentials in the industry and things like that. We are a big fan. As it turns out, Fortune Magazine's a big fan. They have called Pamela the Queen of Reinvention, and she has been on many TV shows, CBS, CNN, NPR. She is well respected, well regarded in this industry. She wrote a fabulous book called The 10 Laws of Career Reinvention, Essential Survival Skills. And I will start off by saying, Pamela, that lately we have been working with a lot of people trying to figure this reinvention thing out. Sometimes it's because they want to retire, but a lot of times it's people wanting to rewire. They're burned out, or they're wanting to pursue their passion. So this is a very timely topic. And so, why don't we kick off with, a lot of times people have long-held dreams to pursue, but the practical concern get in the way. So how can they manage that conflict?
Yeah, I love this. So thank you so much first, Dennis, for having me here. It is my passion to help people unlock and have their best lives, right? Like, we kind of do the same thing. You do it from the financial side. I help them figure it out, the path, and then they go off and they do these things. So, the thing around reinvention is that it is a practical life skill. And that's what we teach it as. It's a skill that helps you navigate the changes of life. So my book, my first book, actually, The 10 Laws of Career Reinvention, Essential Survival Skills for Any Economy, is like very much by design, saying that no matter what's going on in the world, if you have the skill of reinvention, you're able to take yourself someplace you want to go. So, I always say that there are two kinds of reinventions. There's the self-generated reinvention, where you wake up one morning and you're like, you know what, things are great, but I feel like I'm ready for something new. And then there are forced reinventions, where life kind of throws you that curveball and you've got to do something. So no matter what type of reinvention you are pursuing, as you stand at that threshold and say, like, how can I do this in a way that makes sense for my life? What you want to take a look at first is, what do I want from a life perspective? Now, career is a mechanism to create a life that we love. And a lot of the unhappiness that we see with people is that when their career no longer fulfills them, or it conflicts with the life that they want to be having. So maybe they're running a business, but they want more freedom to pursue other things, which means things need to change in how they're running a business, or, their job, no longer supports the way that they want to live. They want to spend maybe half the year somewhere, and the job that they have says no. So what you want to look at first is, how do I want to live for this next phase of my life? And that's the other thing, is that it's not like the movies where you reinvent yourself and you ride off into the sunset and you're done. We change as people. We go through different ages and stages. So if you look at it as the next stage, basically 7 years, 5 to 7 years, maybe up to 10, you say, how do I want to be living in these next 7 years? What do I want to have? And what is it going to take for me to live that way? This is where, you come in, helping them kind of map out that foundation of what do they need financially to do these things. Then we can reverse engineer the reinvention, the career piece that can deliver and support that. So it really starts with coming up with a vision for your life, and then looking at the mechanics of what it's going to take to make that life happen. And then we actually kind of just build the reinvention, the career that supports it.
Well, let's break down a couple of components that you just talked about. One of the things that we see happen sometimes, not all the time, is that people will have this thought process that I have worked my rear end off to get where I am. I am a master of whatever it is, thoracic surgery, or I'm a master of, my particular business or something else. And so somehow I'm not paying heed to that, because I've always been told all my life, you build yourself up to the mastery level, and that is the pinnacle. And then the thing that usually is very closely connected with that is going and doing something else sometimes is less income. Now, again, as you say, we run a lot of side-by-side scenarios of here's today, here's the future, if you do this other thing, and will you still be okay? But that what am I giving up in income because I am a master of my craft is right behind the, am I going to fail my father's wishes or
right, exactly.
Yeah.
And it's a very real question, Dennis. Although what I will say is that it's a fear, right? It's a very common fear, like that loss of income when we stand at the threshold of reinvention. My experience has been that it's not as common of an outcome as people tend to think. And in fact, quite a few people actually end up making more money in their reinvention than they did before, because, it marries the things that make them happy. So it really is a case-by-case basis. So what I would say to someone who has that anxiety is that it's a myth that you always have to give up that level of earning to launch your reinvention. So if you understand that that's a myth, then it opens up the possibility for you to put it together in a different way. Again, it depends on what you want. Like, yeah, if you want to stop being a thoracic surgeon and go be a social worker, those are two different things. But like, I have a client, for example, that had a very lucrative corporate career, very glamorous corporate career that, many people from the outside would be like, why are you leaving? This is incredible. You've gotten to this point. And he was saying, why am I leaving? What am I doing here? And I call these people high-powered hiders. Okay, so what happens is that, our clientele are successful professionals. They've built to this level, but it's not fulfilling to them. Even though the world looks at them and says, oh man, you got it made. Why would you want to do anything different? So they're hiding the fact that they're not quite happy. So these high-powered hiders, so this particular one, we worked on like, what ultimately do you want to do? And we mapped out the plan, and he followed this plan. And now he's earning probably 6 times this, because he went into creating his own business. He's like 6 times that very large corporate salary. But not only that, he lives in Europe. He goes back and forth. Like, he has the life that he wants, not just, oh, I got way more money, but all the things that he wanted, the flexibility, not having to wear the suits, all the different things, he got all of it. So that's how we do it, right? If we can set aside the myth and build it in a real way.
Well, and so the situations where someone is going into something else that may not have the same level of income, but if they're still okay from a financial independence viewpoint, and if they're happier and they feel more life fulfilled, how do you counsel people on how to measure that?
Right. Well, that's a super interesting question, because I say that money is a signifier. It represents things to us. So when we say we want more money, it actually means we want more of something else, right? Some kind of quality that we think money delivers. And even those things, it could be freedom to one person or security to another, or all those things. Even those are signifiers. Security to one person means something different to another person. So the key here is to kind of get down to the foundation of like, what is it that you truly want? Like, what is that core signifier? And work through that, because that's an emotional journey, right? The dollars tell you you're fine. And ultimately, it's about having this life, this very precious life that we have. We've got this one, and we want to make sure we enjoy it while we're here. Time is not promised. So these things are important to keep in mind as we're going through the emotional journey that allows us to benefit from what we've created in order to enjoy our lives, right?
So here's another interesting question that ties in with that. We have some situations where the life partners have different thresholds for what constitutes security.
Mm-hmm. And
so if one life partner is saying, I'm pursuing this next chapter of my life and reinvention, and I've got Coach Pamela working with me, it can be actually frightening to the other life partner who might be thinking, and again, we can run our financial roadmaps and do fire testing and all that good stuff, but it still may be frightening that this person is giving up something they've mastered, something they're making good money, to the unknown. How do you coach your folks on how to coach the family members?
Well, exactly. Yeah, that is a key piece of this. One of the things that that I always coach people and recommend is that that you create a container to discuss the reinvention before you go to your partner on this. Because very much, their whole life is going to be affected by this. And so if you try to work it out with them and you're not clear on where you want to head and how that might work out, then all it does is trigger fear with no result. So you have to be clear in your own head what that map looks like, so that when you go to your partner, you can say, I want to make this change, and here's what it looks like. So then you are in the space of having worked through your own fears and gotten clarity of a pathway that you can then help your partner through those fears, and then make the adjustments that you might need to the plan that accommodate their fears. Right? But you can't go through it with them, because now everybody's in fear mode and like nothing gets done. So you've got to work it out first and then present a clear plan so it's not as triggering.
I love it. As you know, having worked with us, we're all about confidence and clarity. So you're saying do the same thing on your career reinvention plan.
That's exactly right. That's why, Dennis, we have created this boutique firm, which is not just like individual coaching, but groups and a community, because people need a place to go have these conversations where they're talking about it with people who are supportive of the dream, because not everybody in their world is supportive. Like our friends, it's very triggering when we say we're going to change to people. You never know. But also for their family. So they need a safe place to come and talk about it, work it out, talk about their fears, all the things. Nobody has any skin in the game other than wanting their happiness and success, right? So you come, you work it out in this very safe space, and then you can go back to your life and create in a way that, takes you forward.
Great stuff. In our recent fireside chat, we had the piece from The Hidden Brain on finding your purpose. And they had that Andre Agassi story where, at the pinnacle of his tennis career, making fabulous money, fabulous acclaim, he was growing to hate the sport.
Right.
And so finally, he was able to figure out everything you talked about, probably not as fast as it would have been helpful for his mental health. uh, and what's funny is that his wife, Steffi Graf, when she gave up tennis, she didn't look back. She just reinvented the rest of her life fine. But Andre really had a tough time with it. So talk a little bit about, when you're dealing with somebody who just gets stuck in this, is it all just about getting the plan and the clarity, or is there some other WD-40 you're putting in the in the gears?
In the gears. Okay, so most people think that if I get my plan, my tactical plan in place, it all works. But reinvention runs on two levels because it's a creation process, right? And you find this too. There is the external tactical level, and then there's the internal emotional level. And I always say you have to grow into being the kind of person who can have the life you say you want. So if there's something that you want to create and you're not there yet, then there is some emotional growth that's required, or you would already be living it. So one of the ways that we have to grow, and you kind of alluded to this when you talked about being at the pinnacle, is that it's an identity shift. Like reinvention requires an identity shift. You've been one thing, the world has given you accolades for that thing. Now, no matter what you're doing, there's a moment where you're nothing. And that is emotionally difficult. Like, who am I? What value do I bring if I'm no longer this thing that I've been? And so we have to help people through the emotional journey, right? The tactics are fairly straightforward. It's the emotional journey that is the heart of the coaching, because, we work with successful professionals. They know how to create tactically, but it's that emotional piece that can hang people up on the path to their result.
So talk a little bit about the different kinds of coaches that are out there. We run into almost every flavor you can imagine, but talk a little bit about what people should look for in someone to help them with this.
Yeah, this is one of my soapbox things, because with coaching, unfortunately, there are no laws that block people from calling themselves a coach. So anybody can call themselves a coach. Your grandchild could say, I'm a coach, right? I'm a coach that helps people with their careers. And you're looking at your grandchild like, have you even had any experience in a career? Like, how are you a coach? So when somebody calls themselves a coach, it's really important to investigate two things. One, are they a credentialed coach? Because there is an industry organization, it's called the International Coach Federation. They have been around for many years. They have accredited programs. There is a code of ethics that you have to abide by. There are guidelines. There are core coaching skills that you must be trained in. They listen, you have to put in. So it is a full-on, credentialed, licensed program. And what you want to look for coaches that have gone through that process. Many coaches who haven't, or they haven't gone through that program, will tell you, oh, it's not important, they're old-fashioned, whatever. But the thing is, much like anything, if you want to deviate from the core, it's important to know the core skills, right? So mastery involves understanding the core skills, and then you can layer on top of that. But you really wouldn't want to go to a doctor that's like, medical school. Hey, it's not important for me to go to an accredited medical school. You don't want that. You want somebody that has gone through and learned the basics, and then gone through, and practice those skills so that they've reached a level of mastery and understands the skills that are important in that. That's what you want when you're looking for a coach.
Well, and I would add one thing to that. I always like to see coaches who have actually walked the talk. So,
Yes.
so share a little bit. I mean, you were successful on Wall Street. You were a successful entertainment executive. So you did quite a few pivots of your own and
Yes.
reinventions. So talk about some of the things you went through, some of the emotions you went through with that.
Yeah. Dennis, I say that I created the company that I wished had existed when I was unhappy on Wall Street. And I knew I needed to make a change, and there was nothing out there. And so, yeah, this is born of the fact that I had this very, successful career that looked good on the outside, but I was miserable on the inside. And, I went looking for a coach, or a program or a book that specialized in reinvention. I didn't know that that's what I didn't have that name, but I was like, everything was about climbing the ladder in your current career. There was nothing about, hey, what if you want to switch ladders? What do you do then? Right? So this is what my problem was that I had to figure out. And every fear that every person has about this reinvention journey, I don't know what I want. I pick something that is like everybody wants, entertainment, and it's all about who you know. And I knew nobody. I am a girl from Milwaukee. I didn't have all those contacts or anything. I didn't know if my skills would translate. I ran out of money because I hadn't planned on it. I mean, I was miserable at my job. Like I would cry at my desk, even though I was like successful, but I would be there at 2 or 3 in the morning crying at my desk because I was so unhappy and the environment was not conducive to my personality. And I was good at it. And this is where I learned that you could be good at doing something and not fulfilled at doing it. So just because you're talented at something doesn't mean that it's for you. So I had to make that leap.
Yeah. Well, and one of our favorite reinvention stories was actually the inspiration for our new fourth quarter champions piece that we launched recently, where we studied 25 families and individuals who did better than average in the fourth quarter of their life. One of the examples is someone who did exactly what you said. They had a very successful career in healthcare. They pivoted out of that because they were burned out or afraid they were going to have a heart attack or something. And they lived their dream. And what's interesting is now they're in their mid 80s and they are both continuing to pursue reinvention. So, 25 years ago, you really didn't think of an 85-year-old or 86-year-old pursuing reinvention.
Oh my God. I know, it's true. My mother, she's going to be 81 this year. She has reinvented 4 times now. Well, granted, I can help her with this, but she has had 4 different careers, very successful careers. It's super interesting. Like there is no limit. The only limit is in our minds. So, but to just put a pin in the question that you asked, the reason it's important to have someone, a coach that has gone through their own reinvention. And by the way, you want that reinvention to have gone from one career to another career. You don't want somebody whose reinvention is becoming a coach. And that's because, I'm going to become a coach to tell you how to do the thing that I did not do in my own career. You want somebody who has done it so they know all of the hurdles that you're going to face, and it was successful in their second career. So they've made a successful leap. Now that person can help you, even though a credentialed coach is never going to tell you, like they're not going to tell you this is what you do. That's not what coaches do. But in understanding the journey, they can ask the questions that can guide you. And they know when you're saying certain things, what those things will be, and they'll know which path to pick in those 3, 4 different options of like where you could go with a particular question.
Yeah, very important distinction. And our experience has been one size fits one, and to make sure that the chemistry is really good with that individual, but also make sure that they actually know what they're talking about.
Yes. Oh my goodness. I want to tell one little quick story about that. And this is before I became a coach. I had a friend who was a journalist, and she was working with a corporate coach. This is when I was thinking about becoming a coach, and she was covering a beat that was having a big anniversary, right, of a particular news story. And she wanted to go and get more money from her bosses. And she was talking to the coach about it, but she told the coach, look, this is not the moment for me to try to pitch for a raise, because this big anniversary is coming. They're not going to want to hear anything from this. And the coach, again, so pathways you can choose, was like, this sounds like fear. This sounds like fear, and pushed her to overcome her fear. And of course, she made that pitch. Of course, it was not successful because, it really was a political thing. There's political, in a corporate environment, there's timing to bringing things up. And because this coach, which I said to her, I said, has your coach ever worked in a corporate environment? No, clearly not. Because the coach was like, oh, you're afraid. Instead of, oh yeah, you need to pick the right time to bring this conversation up. These are the little nuances that are so critical in being guided by a coach, so. Yeah.
Well, yeah. And share with our audience just some of the things you're working on these days, new content.
Yes. So we mentioned my book, The 10 Laws of Career Reinvention. And I actually have two other, and I put them in quotation marks, books, which are Audible originals. So they are audio first. And there is Mastering the Skill of Reinvention, which is a book-length work. So that is like sort of my second book. And then there is Pivot and Pursue It, which is a 90-minute deep dive into the topic of pivoting and pursuing it. So it's kind of a mini masterclass, not even mini, it's a masterclass, a 90-minute masterclass. And actually 10 Laws is going to be coming out soon as an Audible as well. I just finished recording that. So it's just a great way to be introduced. And, I'm the person that I just give it all. So when you listen to them, most people in the reviews are like, oh my God, I thought I could listen in my car, but I kept pulling over because I had to take notes. And so finally I just picked something else to listen to in my car, because I just gave in and just said, I got to take notes. So there's a lot of information to get people started on their reinvention. And then, they can come to us if they're ready, if they're ready to take it further. And not everybody does, because those are certainly enough. It just depends on what you need.
Yeah. Well, it's funny that one of our business owner clients that we're working on a whole pivot plan for at multiple levels, business, personal finances, all the things you've been talking about, make sure you're going in the direction of your intentions. They ended up labeling our plan Pivot and Thrive. So a little, kind of like Pivot and Pursue.
Yep. That's right. Pivot and pursue.
Yeah,
That's exciting.
yeah.
But it is all about thriving, right? It's all about we are partners in creating a life that people love. We do the same work, right? We help people create those lives. And there's just nothing more satisfying than that.
Absolutely. Well, so you also mentioned workshops. I mean, are there other ways that people could engage with you or the Reinvention Institute?
Yeah. So we have a community that we're launching, actually, we're in the midst of launching right now. So you can put yourself on the wait list for it. It's called the Accelerator. So it's a Reinvention Accelerator. And it is both a 12-week deep dive course paired with a coaching community, group coaching. So that's that community where you can come in. I run monthly coaching calls. I have associate coaches that come in, and you can ask questions in the forum and post. And, there's accountability, because one of the big things around going through this process is that when we're looking to make a change, if we're trying to do all of the pushing ourselves, that's the same energy that is required to actually create. So if you can have an outside accountability partner, it's really a way of turbocharging your results, because now you're just accountable to that person. So you don't have to spend any energy pushing yourself. You just say, I've got to get it done because I told so-and-so I'm going to get it done and they're going to ask me about it. So now all your energy is channeled into creation instead of fighting and pushing yourself. So we've created that coaching community as well. And that's our big thing. So, that's right now it's in beta, add yourself to the list. I also work with very few companies who are reinventing. So that is a whole other thing. Like right now I have a Fortune 100 company that I work with. And their CEO has brought me in to work with the executive committee because the org is going through a reinvention. And when an org is reinventing themselves, it's really the people. So what we work on is not the tactics of what the org needs to do. That's not it. But how do you take people on that journey of reinvention? Because if you're not guiding people through it, much like when you talked about with the partners, when somebody comes in and says, I want to do this, and then their partner is like, no, that's what happens on a corporate level too. You come in, you're like, I want to make a change, and everybody else is like, oh, no. So you've got to guide people through a change journey. So I do that, like I said, very select corporate clients. And then, other clients bring me in just to speak on the topic to their people, or, other kinds of partnerships. So that's it. So it's hybrid, like it's my ideal career. Like I get to write, I get to do some corporate work, I get to speak, I get to work one-on-one with clients. I have a very small one-on-one slate that I work with. We get to do the community. So we put it together in many different ways.
Well, and that corporate piece, we're finding a lot of companies, both private and public, who are aware of all the big change going on around us. I mean, it is the fourth and techno-industrial revolution, but the change is otherwise. I mean, that revolution is happening, but there's all kinds of things swirling around it. And they're trying to figure out what should we be in our next reinvention. But recognizing that that's going to create a lot of real consternation among employees, and in this labor market, they can't afford to be losing some of those folks. So yeah, that sounds like a fun and challenging thing to do as well.
Yeah, it's super, super fun because all change is executed through human beings. So if you ignore...
Is that the good news and the bad news?
That's the good news and the bad news. That's the good news and the bad news. So you can't ignore the human element if you really want the change to take. You're going to have to, like I said, you have to grow into being the kind of person that can have the life you say you want. The org has to grow emotionally into being a new org. It has to have a new identity, what we do, new language, all of the things are the same. So it's super interesting when you think about, like, how do we take this org on this journey?
Yeah, very good. Well, so we will put links to your new Audible books on the link with this recording, and also ways that they can get in touch with you otherwise. Very much appreciate your time today and some of the things you've shared with our audience.
Thank you so much, Dennis, for having me. It's been fabulous.
Yeah, thank you.